Hello and welcome to the LCS Report Worlds Edition. God, this was an incredible 5 game series. I was just praying for a 5 game series. We got a 5 game series. There's so much to talk about, not just because of how incredible that series was, but because there was so many things that could have happened with this game, like with these games. I mean, it was such a tense series, and for what it's worth, one of my issues with 5 games in general, with like not issue, one of the ways that I sort of discern like a really good 5 game series versus a mediocre 5 game series is how much tension there is in those games. And my god, the first five, all the games had so much tension. Sure, towards the end of game 5 you could feel the tension kind of slipping because, like, they're about to end the game and whatnot, and Doran elongated the game a little bit, but he just wanted them to have a little bit more fun. But those games were so tense, they could have won either way. Game 1, absolutely. KT could have won games 1, 2, and 3. They also could have won game 4. I mean, there's just so much going on with these games. I am so happy. You're so tired? Yeah. I may not have a voice, but you're here in spirit. Hello, Martin. Yeah, so Martin's feeling sick. Probably yelling, screaming all night, watching the games, so I don't blame him. Hello, Poppy. You're tired, Carolyn? Me too. Ripple Esports? Why do you say that, Russell? Is it because are you part of the narrative that, like, if T1 win, that is bad for LoL Esports? But let's just briefly talk about like game 1. Just all of the games. I thought they had such a good draft. KT. I thought KT did amazing drafts every single game. The rumble into like the Ambessa obviously it's a matchup that's played all the time. Wukong pros prefer Wukong over Xin Zhao. Like, just having the Rise plus the Ashe and the Braum to stop like the basically they didn't have T1 didn't have much engage, and you had Braum, and the idea was like, we have Braum, what are you gonna do about it, right? You can't really engage, but Carius, Poppy, Guma's very like Faker didn't die a single time that game. The game was so tense, and I'm pretty sure up until like the third dragon, KT KT had gone like every single objective. They were up in gold, they were up in kills, they were like really pushing the pace, and then, man, just pick after pick. You could feel the game kind of falling down, and then it goes back up, and then it falls back down, and it was so tense, and it was like at the end of game 1, I was like, okay, we just finished like game 2 or something, and I'm like, wait a minute, it's game 1. The same thing for game 2. I don't know how long that game was. It was definitely over 40 minutes because that was a long game. Doran won before Chovy. I mean, Gimgoon won before Chovy. Like, if you think about it, Gimgoon won before Keen. Like, that's the thing with Worlds. It's not necessarily just about the fact that you won. Although the trophy, the skin, incredible. You're right. Because Grief, that team fight, yes, it literally was a game of inches. Like, they legitimately, KT legitimately could have just won game 1, and no one would have said, oh, they threw, or like, oh, it was a chance. Like, that game was in their hands. Game 2 was in their hands as well, and they did chuck it a little bit. Like, they had a lead. It was getting a little spicy, but I mean, they just played great. Honestly, I fell I fell asleep through the game, and then I woke up to like just the casters going insane over like a play, and then I was like, oh, whoa, what happened? I think it was a Nico play, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I did fall asleep partway through the game, but I was really tired. But there was so much tension, and I woke up, and I think that also made it feel like the game was a lot longer than it actually was. Because I literally fell asleep, woke up, and the game kept going. And just seeing BDD on his Mel, my god, that Mel was nasty. Cuz with Vi, like, I think he didn't die, did he? Maybe he died once. But just overall, that game, honestly, I felt like Perfect was completely invisible the entire series. I remember when DRX had their run, Kingen ended up winning MVP. And it was because Kingen was like actively just kind of playing so well and gapping Zeus, and no one expected that, and that was a big reason why they won. Whereas here, Perfect didn't show up. I mean, he was like in feeding. I mean, they were bullying him. There wasn't like feeding. But just the fact that they picked I wish I could have asked the question. I think if there was a little bit more time, I could have asked KT, just not specifically about the the Yorick blind, because they did ask about the Yorick blind, and I was like, oh, it had to happen. But why did you pick red, like blue side? Why did you pick blue side game 5 if you were going to blind Yorick? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. If you wanted, like, if you had the Smolder plus Ziggs flex to begin with, then why didn't you just take red side? Because then flex gets extra value because you get to decide at the end, right? And then they don't know, and then you can also not blind your top laner. I don't know. I felt like if you wanted that strategy, maybe going red side. And maybe I'm wrong. And maybe I asked Score and he was like, you're stupid. Haha. We hosted a watch party. Ooh. Oh no, Carolyn. Game 4, you were the only person awake. Yeah. In other words, perfect. Played like he did all year. Subpar LCK. Yeah. I thought he was subpar. I think his laning was really good throughout the year. It's just he just wasn't a very good team fighting top laner, and his laning wasn't even that great. I know, like, game 1 he had like 400. He had like an incredible. I think he had the most CS in any game. Like, he had so much CS. I remember looking and I was like, dude, how do you have so much CS? But I mean, honestly, some AD carry probably had more CS than him. It was also a really long game. And then you go into game 3 and KT win again. You're like, oh my god, I start to believe. Cuz on the Mundo goes wherever he pleases. Dude, that Mundo gameplay was just so degenerate. I love this champion so much. You had a Yunara like and putting like 800 auto attacks. You had the 0 and 10 Doran just putting every single stun and auto attack he can. You know, freaking Owner on his Viego and Faker throwing his Chaos ulti, and Owner's just, and Cuz goes to like 20% HP, presses R, gains his full HP bar. Oh man, it was so much fun to see. But honestly, Duckdown kind of clutched it up. I thought like Duckdown this year, this Worlds has like not been mediocre. It's been great. And Peter, I thought Peter got, like, the lights were too bright for Peter. I don't know how you guys felt, but I really felt like Peter, I don't want to say he shrunk because of the lights, but he wasn't able to play the same way he played against Gen G. Like, something about the atmosphere playing against T1, the biggest stage in finals, you kind of find yourself shrinking a little bit. And I definitely felt that with Peter. I hope KT keeps at least some of this team together for next year. I think they will. All the attacks on Mundo still chatting into his phone. yeah. He's just that is pretty funny. But game 4, man, this is where you're just like, man, this is things of legend. They pick Kalista Renata, and you're just like, okay, BDD picked what's her name, Cassio, and Cuz picked Trundle because he has Pillar, and you're like, there's no way Guma can do anything, and Guma gets like 9 kills that game and just goes completely berserk. Obviously, the Faker had the Anivia pick. I didn't really like the Nocturne pick, and I know that Doran's like historically really good on Gragas. I felt like this was what cemented Gumayushi as the finals MVP. I know there's a game 5 MF, but like, I think this game 4, the fact that they won this game 4 with this draft, I don't know, like, Caitlyn outranges your Anivia, your Kalista. What are you gonna do? Dive with Nocturne? You have Peter's playing Tom Kench. Same thing for BDD. Like, on you try to go in on her as owner, and you're just gonna get one shot. It felt like a really difficult game coming from draft, but they won somehow, some way. They got every dragon. Dude, Owner did not want to lose. He was like flashing in. He didn't care. He was dying to get every single smite. I'm pretty sure they got all 4 dragons, if I'm not mistaken. Like, the fact that they got all 4 dragons, and like the Baron was the Baron was fine, but like the I think the first or second dragon, it was just like pure Owner refusing to lose. He was like, oh, if we lose this dragon, like, things are gonna be bad. So I think maybe it was 3rd dragon. It flashes in there, gets the steal. Just time and time again, he clutches up when it matters the most, and it's just T1 at Worlds. Like, what can you say? That game 4, you had no business winning that game 4. There's a world where T1 wins game 2 if Guma didn't troll that last team fight. Game 2, last team fight. What was that? Oh, on the Sivir? I mean, they were like 10,000 gold behind. I don't know. Like maybe you win that team fight, but I still think you lose the game. But you're right. There is a world where they win that game too. I mean, I think games 1 and 2 could have gone either way. Game 3, I feel like also could have went either way. But then Mundo hit level 16 and it was like impossible. So maybe not so much game 3, but at least games 1, 2, and 4, I felt could have went either way. And then game 5, I mean, I thought the draft was, besides the Yorick pick, I thought the draft was great. I thought the Smolder coming in late, the Smolder got his, like, you completely and entirely outscale the T1 composition. And I know that MF is like a counter into, dude, I was wondering what was going on. I thought there was like hair on my face, but it was on my microphone and it kept, where is it? And it keeps poking my face and I'm like thinking that there it is, that it's like my beard hair or something. But anyways, you pick the MF because like you can't really outpoke her because she Bloodthirster. I thought the Leona ults were just on point over and over and over again. And Peter, he just like kept getting caught. He died. Like such egregious deaths, you know, like walking into an MF ult to try to cancel. Like it was, you could tell he was out of his comfort zone. And then Perfect just getting bullied by Doran and Owner, just absolutely getting bullied. Faker 2 years in a row goes Galio game 5 and enables his team. Obviously it's Camille Galio, like that is a composition you play. And you also have like the carrier ult and like you basically have a wombo combo. But I legitimately thought like at some point, if the game stays even, come 25 minutes, it's just going to be incredibly difficult for T1 to win a team fight. Because they have to get on Smolder and Ziggs, but then you have Sejuani and Nautilus as like these meatballs to protect. And then you also have to worry about the side lane. But man, come 25 minutes, there was like 7,000 gold lead for T1. It wasn't even close. And I know there was like Doran hinting a little bit, but like at the end of the day, I legitimately think if the game, all the onus, all the pressure was on T1 at that game 5, and that is where they are comfortable. Like we don't care. Like put the pressure on us. And it doesn't matter. And they put all the pressure on their shoulders, and they just won time and time again. And by like 20 minutes, they had, from 20 minutes to 25 minutes, they doubled their gold lead. And then the rest was history. You could tell, like, it didn't matter the Smolder was 225. It didn't matter that he was 6 items or 5 items. It didn't matter he got his hourglass. Like, it just didn't matter. They were just too far behind. Perfect was paper. Perfect was completely imperfect. Peter couldn't do much, and I felt bad for Dukdom and BDD. Like they were trying their hardest, but their hardest wasn't enough. BDD was taking every piece of camp, every piece of like minions, anything that he could. He had so many stacks, it just didn't matter. And it's like so crushing, dude. BDD in the press conference looked like he had just been crying for the entire time. It's honestly like crushing what T1 keep doing to players in Worlds, but they keep doing it. They keep doing it. Overall, my thoughts on the series. I think KT we both watched Worlds last year. BLG versus T1. And BLG stomped in games 1 and 3. And in games 4, they were stomping. And Faker had to pull out heroic plays in order to win that game 4 on his Sylas. And he had to completely go Super Saiyan in order to win that game 5 with his Galio. This year wasn't about Faker being Faker. This year with T1, it was about T1 being T1. T1 out-prepping, out-drafting, or not even out-prepping or out-drafting, but outplaying as a team. And that's an evolution. Because last year, believe it or not, overall, I thought BLG was a better team. Now, at Worlds, they lost fair and square. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they were better than T1 at Worlds. At that finals, Faker happened, right? But the fact that Faker had to happen tells you how good BLG were. And this year, it felt like T1 as a whole came in and clutched it out. And that is not something I was necessarily expecting. For a few reasons. One, they came out against the AL series and they didn't look prepped well in draft. And then they came out and they pulled out the Kai'Sa. And I was like, all right, it's over. T1 lost. They just don't win with Kai'Sa. And they did. And then they won with Ashmel Seraphine. And it felt like the entire team, and the Mundo, the first time Mundo, it felt like the entire team was clutching it up. And maybe I should have guessed that after the AL series, that it was going to be a team thing. But I really didn't. And I thought if it was going to be a victory, it was going to be off the back of like an incredible specific player. But it really was. I mean, obviously there was Guma, don't get me wrong. But it felt like the whole team ended up carrying the banner of T1. And I don't remember the last time that happened in a Game 5. Like the last time we had a Game 5 where there wasn't, at Worlds, where it wasn't like, oh, this player clutched it out, or this player... I guess there haven't been that many Game 5s at Worlds, so it's a little difficult to kind of measure it that way. But this is the third championship in a row for T1. This is the third championship for 4 of the members. For 3 of the members. This is Faker's 6th championship and Doran's 1st. They're just pulling out record after record after record. This is supposed to be the twilight of Faker's career. This is supposed to be when T1 starts to become irrelevant. And they are more relevant than they ever were. They are the most relevant. And it's a sense of like dynasty. I don't think any other team can use it. The term dynasty really, really encapsulates this run by T1. And to those who say like T1 is ruining esports, because I have seen people sort of propagating that narrative that, oh, if T1 keeps winning, what's the point of watching? The point is to appreciate it. The point is T1 are playing at an unprecedented level. This type of stuff doesn't happen every day. It doesn't happen in every sport. This is literally a dynasty in the making. You are witnessing history at such a phenomenal level. The point is to appreciate it. The point is to talk about how unlikely and how unrealistic what they're doing is. To talk about how this is the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. It's not, oh, well, if they always win, then it's boring. Who cares? That's not, you're not appreciating you're not watching League of Legends. If you can watch these games and be bored, then what League of Legends can you watch? At that point, all you really care about is your team winning, right? If you just want, whatever, like Gen G to win, and if T1 wins, then it's boring to you, then I'm sorry. Like, part of appreciating the game is if someone wins, you can watch them win. That's why people's, like, even when North American teams in the past used to play, you would watch their gameplay and be like, oh, they sucked. Even if they won LCS, even if they did this, they sucked. But this T1 team, regardless of whether you enjoyed T1 or not, their gameplay throughout the past few years, the 4 years that they've really been making every single finals, has been a blessing to see. I feel blessed to be able to like witness what is happening. The issue is people will tell you they knew all along they'd win with Doran, and it takes away from what yes, so people rewriting narratives as if this T1 team was like always meant to win. T1 wasn't even about to make it to MSI. Like, the fact that people are like, oh, T1 we're always going to make MSI finals, or T1 we're always going to make world finals. I understand them saying, oh, T1 is always going to make world finals just because they always do. But the fact that this T1 team was expected to win, especially like going into LCK Cup, where they finished like 5th, 6th because of the format, and like people didn't even know what was going on between Guma and Smash, and it really felt like the end of the T1 dynasty. Think about last year when Zeus left, how everybody was like up in arms and like sad about what happened with the ZOFGK era. Like, this team went through a lot of turmoil, a lot of difficulty. They were 2-2. They could have been eliminated in quarterfinal. Like, this team it wasn't easy. This was very difficult for them to do it. And you have to appreciate the story. But I posted a video about Doran when World started. And I said, Doran's story at Worlds is very, very sad because he keeps coming out of Korea as a first seed and then facing really difficult opponents in either the quarters or semis, and like that's the nature of World, and he just doesn't even make it to finals, and he keeps losing and losing in quarters as the #1 team from Korea, you know, like 2 years in a row, and it's just such a sad story. And now that he won Worlds, or when he made it to finals, a lot of people are like, this aged well, didn't it? Or like, oh, haha, he proved you wrong. And I'm like, no, he didn't prove me wrong. What are you talking about? I'm talking about facts. This is incredible. Let's not rewrite the history. Doran wasn't always a world finalist. He wasn't always a world champion. He overcame all of these obstacles, all of these difficulties, all of these failures, all of those crushing moments in order to get to where he is today. And if we just ignore everything and we say he was always a winner, that's just false. It's fake. He isn't. He wasn't. He only won now. And because it took him so long to win, I can truly appreciate, as a big Doran fan, I can truly appreciate the entire journey that he's been through. And it's the same thing what you're saying, Russell. I feel you, is that people will rewrite history to show that, like, oh, the victors were always the victors. And sometimes the victors are the least likely. Who would have guessed back in 2022 that this T1 roster was going to make 4 finals in a row and win 3 of them? No one. This T1 roster was called chokers. People in Korea were calling them chokers because they lost every single final barring one. In 2022 spring, they won finals. They go to MSI, they lose MSI finals in game 5. They go to summer, they lose LCK finals. They go to Worlds, make it to Worlds finals, and they were heavy favorites. And they lost. And people were calling them chokers. They would never win. They go into 2023, they lose again to Genji. Spring. They go to MSI, they don't even make it to finals. They go to summer, they don't win. And coming into that Worlds, that T1 roster was called chokers. People said they couldn't win. They didn't have it in them. Whether it was Zeus getting bodied by Doran, or whatever it was, whether it was Guma not showing up when it really mattered. People kept talking so poorly about this T1 roster. And then they changed the narrative. And they were world champions. And they actually haven't won an LCK since. They haven't won an MSI since. But they won 3 world championships. And I think that makes up for it. I think that makes up for it. But at the end of the day, if we just rewrite history to say that they were always winners, no, they weren't. That struggle that they had to go through, you're taking away a lot of the meaning behind them overcoming. Like, we still see the picture of Keria, like, absolutely just crying in his seat. That wouldn't matter if he was always a winner. So I feel you. I don't necessarily want to rewrite history. But for KT, man. For KT. It's a heartbreaker. It really is a heartbreaker. They got so far. They got so far and tried their hearts out. And it felt like it's just, when I was watching the press conference, which I'll upload eventually, maybe tomorrow, I'm tired. They were just crushed, man. They were just crushed. There's no other way to say it. You get so close to your goal and you try so hard for it and you push harder than you've ever pushed before for so long, for 10 years. And it evades you. It isn't 10 years for everybody, obviously, but like for years of your life, and it evades you at the very last step. I mean, we saw how much BGD cried just winning and making it to World Finals. How much that meant for him. How much there was in his chest. How much he tried. How far he had to go to get there. And yeah, he finally did it. This will be the craziest offseason yet. KT needs to get this man a team, like a real team. I mean, if you put Keen on KT, doesn't that team just become a favorite? I'm not saying I'm not asking for Keen to leave or anything. I'm just saying, hypothetically speaking, pretty sure Keen's contract ends. If Keen joins KT again, I don't know. That seems like a really good roster to me. No hit to perfect, but he's not Keen, right? I also want to talk about the opening ceremony because I saw there was like a lot of discussion around it, and I think Barn as well did not enjoy the opening ceremony. I thought it was okay. As I was watching it, I was like, man, this would hit so much harder if I was there. That is how I felt. And I think there were a few things that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. One of the things was like, when Jem first came out, I don't know whether it was like her microphone wasn't in tune or what it was, but she sounded really off. And then eventually she sounded well. But I thought the opening in general was great. I think the introduction of players kind of was meh. And I think usually they do a phenomenal job at bringing in the players. And yes, they brought them in when they said like legends never die and everything. But I don't know. It felt a little lackluster to me. Overall, I thought it was fine. It was like a 6 out of 10. But if the World Sing song wasn't so boring, yeah. I mean, I think the issue for me was that the choreography and like the things around the stage did not give off the vibe of sacrifice. That's like one thing that I've been talking about. Is like even the music video, it doesn't scream sacrifice to me. If you wanted to talk about earning your legacy, if you wanted to talk about sacrifice, I feel like you need to show tears. You need to show weeping. You need to show struggle. You need to show Keria with his head down. You need to show Doran crying on stage. Like, you need to show all of the pain and suffering that they went through in order to get to where they are, right? Like, I didn't feel as hyped with the song as I did with Legends Never Die because of like the entrance of the players. So I did think there were like missed opportunities, and it definitely could have been better. But I don't think it's like the worst thing of all times. I would give it like a 6 out of 10. Now, was it worth the money that they probably spent to do all of that? I don't know, but that's one thing with Riot. They constantly experiment and they'll keep improving. I think that's one thing that I will give Riot credit for, is that they constantly improve. With like their music and whatnot and their performances, at least Riot Global, maybe not like the regional teams. And yeah, I thought the world's like teaser, the finals teaser, was probably the worst one in like, I don't know, 5-6 years. They've been incredible. I thought the semifinals were better than the finals, in my opinion. But maybe I have to rewatch it. I was really, really tired at that time. So maybe if I rewatch it, I'll think it's different. Now, I'm not saying it's bad. Again, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that like this year, considering they had this whole like big collab, 15 years, oh my god, celebration, earn your legacy, sacrifice, it felt like there was a lot of big talk and not that much, like, it wasn't cogent. It wasn't coherent with the theme. Their performances weren't coherent with the theme. I love the fact that they came up with the first song was Warriors, right? Built this town from dust. Earn your legacy. I understood that. Legends never die. They become a part of you. Like, sacrifice. I see that. I can see where they're coming from. But then all of the dance, like, I don't know. I personally felt like there was something, just like with the sacrifice song. I felt like there was something missing. There's like, it left something to be desired. That's how I felt. And maybe I'm just like a little too dramatic, and I wanted more sacrifice to like be the theme. If you're gonna call it sacrifice, make it about sacrifice. I just didn't feel that way. But yeah, it is what it is. I'm glad that apparently on scene, it's always going to be different live versus online, and apparently live it was pretty good. So yeah, there is that. The last thing that I want to talk about. Ooh, baby, we keep talking about this. Interviews. Interview questions. During the press conference before Worlds, so the pre-World Finals press conference, there was like questions about tarot card readings and like, hey, did you see pandas? And people were very frustrated because nothing was asked about the gameplay to T1. People were frustrated because these questions seem to come out of nowhere, and it's not League of Legends related. It's missing the mark. You have time. You have the opportunity to ask Faker a question, to ask Keria a question, and you're asking about Panda. Like, why are we not asking more tangible things about their careers, about the players that they're going to face? About, like, I think there was a question that was like, could you all give me one word to answer, like, what is one word you would describe yourself going into finals or something like that? It's like, can we get like more in-depth questions about the actual gameplay, the champions that they play, like, and look, I make it a rule to not listen to what people want when it comes to questions. Because people are like, oh, you can't ask that. And then like, that is the question they love the most. But for some reason, it's also, you're not allowed to ask that. And they'll be like, oh, why don't you ask this? And then you ask this and nobody like cares about that question. It's like such a weird question to ask. People, when you're not in the situation, in the actual like room, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, at the end of the day, you can say what you think. I'm not telling you to shut up, but you don't actually know what you're talking about until you're in that situation. So I'll preface it with that. But I think the criticism, some of it is valid. Last year, I was criticizing my fellow journalists during press conferences because of how stupid their questions were. There was a question to who was it? I don't even remember. Maybe a Gen G player. And he was like, did you feel, no, it was a TES player. He was like, did you feel Faker's aura? How was his aura going into that match? Because like aura had just become a thing, you know? And I was like, what the hell? Did you feel Faker's aura when you saw him? What is that question, man? Are you 3? And there are multiple questions like this where it's just like, the question makes no sense. And I criticized it. And I said, hey, as media, we need to do better. Our press conference questions are really bad. One-on-one is very different, by the way. You get to prep, like, one-on-one is very, very different. Press conferences, you only get a limited amount of time, and you don't get to, like, ask follow-up questions. It's very different. And you have to be, like, more concise. It's a different type of question. And I understand why a lot of my colleagues struggle coming up with, like, really good questions. And I even, like, when Lucy Weird asked her question, I messaged her. I was like, dude, that was a great question. Very well said. It's impressive how they can't get good interviews. What do you mean they can't get good interviews? I think most of these people didn't watch LoL esports till Worlds though, or just at internationals. I mean, yeah, most people only watch internationals. That's a fact, right? Again, with the moving away of like press conferences, I think people see it less. And the times that it did happen, that we only had like 2 press conferences, right? And so they were bigger spectacles and people like were more frustrated with it. I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe it's just like the fact that Carrier happened and I happened, that people were frustrated. And so like they started being a little bit more nitpicky. But at the end of the day, I think us as media, as press interviewers, like people asking questions in press conference, like at the end of the day, there's someone from Gosu Gamers. I didn't even know Gosu Gamers still existed. Right? No hate to her. But a lot of these like outlets are not professionals. They don't study how to give good interview questions. I'm not a journalist, and yet I study and I try to give the best questions that I can. And I feel frustrated for my colleagues because a lot of their questions I feel like it's a waste of time. Like, I would rather get 2 questions and ask 2 very good questions rather than each one of us get 1 question. And some of the questions being horrible. And you can't pre-screen it. Like, don't even get me started on that. But like, I'm not criticizing anyone specific, but it is a call to the press. Like, hey, let's do a better job. I think the interviewers don't have very good experience. And this is something that I tweeted out. But like, we aren't trained. We don't have, how many years of press conferences do we have? Very little. If you think about it, very, very little. How many years of loser interview press conference questions do you get to have? Very little. Because we don't really have them, except like a couple times a year. And even then, it's constantly different media. It's not always the same people asking the same questions. So I do think that as time develops, we will gain more experience and be able to ask better questions. Like, for example, last year at MSI, Knight had this situation where like he jumped in on Tristana, took tower aggro, ended up dying when he could have ended the game, right? And people asked him that in Chinese, and then they asked him that in English, and then they asked him that in Korean, and he was very frustrated and he didn't even want to answer. And that was a situation where like it's difficult because, well, the translator doesn't do the translations, and the same people don't speak the same languages, so like they didn't know that was asked. But then to Riot's credit, they started improving at that. Actually, I don't know if they actually. I take that back. I don't know if it's to Riot's credit. No, it is, because at MSI this year they did improve because they had the same people there, and let me like, oh, the question was answered. But I was gonna say they didn't even have press conferences of this world, so like they couldn't have. They improved by removing it, right? Do most of the bad questions come from the people from big platforms like big news channels or something? So no comment. I know exactly who they are because I see them all the time. And to their credit, Chinese media, English media, and Korean media, they all have someone out there. I will say Korean media is probably the best one out of them all. They still have weird questions, but overall, I think the Korean media is the best. I will compare the English and Chinese. I don't want to get in trouble. That's all I'll say. But it's just frustrating to see. And I'm calling for press. Let's do a better job. Let's learn more about the game. I'm going to make it my personal goal to hit Diamond in League, if not higher, and understand the game at a higher level so that I can ask more questions. I'm always asking about gameplay questions. And yes, it comes from like an Emerald jungler / support / mid laner like perspective. But I would like to understand the game at an even higher level. And I mean, it's the fact that I understand the game at a higher level than the average player. And so I'm already at an advantage there. Oh, he that's Pedro Romero. He's not doing interview. He didn't do interviews this Worlds. At least there were no press conferences, so maybe he did do interviews, but one-on-one. But he hasn't. I reached Diamond just before I moved to. Yo, congrats! That's huge. All right, I gotta hit Diamond too. Gotta get the Diamond train on. But yeah, I've been playing League competitively. You know, obviously on a rec team, but competitively in order to understand League of Legends better and have better questions and like understand a little bit of what they go through. So I am putting my effort into understanding. I'm learning languages, right? This year I really wanted to do questions in Korean or interviews in Korean, but I actually have a separate video on that as to why that didn't happen. There was a reason behind it. Obviously, I started the year, I did a Korean interview, but then things kind of stopped. Still in LBLCS. We didn't actually join LBLCS. We joined Aegis League, so AEL. LBLCS waitlisted us and never accepted us. So we were like, screw you. Apparently I wasn't popular enough for them. So, oh my god. That's pretty sad. So yeah, we didn't make it to LBLCS, but I'm doing what I can in order to be a better, to ask better questions. And I think my colleagues, my message to my colleagues is, hey, you guys do it too. Learn more about these people's histories. Learn more about the game so you can ask gameplay questions. Learn more about the dynamics so you can ask questions about dynamics. It feels like every year the same questions are asked, and every year is not the same. So I really like. I'm going to do my best to up the standard, so that when I ask my question, everyone knows it's a good question, and people are compared to myself, and it forces the other people to improve their questions. I'm sure it'll be another stream, but who feels that I will dominate Void of co-stream in English? I mean, Marn and I discussed this a bit. I think the answer is no one. I think the answer is no one, which is sad. I was hoping that, yeah, I think the answer is no one. That Void just exists, unfortunately. But we will see. But yeah, that's it for the LCS report. We will have more episodes. This isn't the last episode, just so you know. Just talking about like off-season stuff. There's a lot of League to be talked about. But specifically, just shout out to Marn for everything that he's done with this channel, with the Discord. Shout out to Wuhi for setting that up. Shout out to Carolyn for being our mod and being really, really awesome. Having that sign, the Shopify sign. Just shout out to everybody that has joined. And for myself, I'm gonna I still have part 2 of the T1 press conference to upload, and then I have the KT press conference to upload, and then I have a video. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with it, but I have a couple videos that are going to go up. One probably just for members that's going to be a little bit more personal, and then another one just generic, like sort of contemplating and reflecting on this world championship and this year, and on my channel. So that's it for me, and as usual, thank you so much for watching, and we'll